In today's video, we'll go over 5 changes I'd make to Tears of the Kingdom to make it the perfect game. Look, in my opinion, Tears of the Kingdom is already a 10 out of 10, and let's be real, probably going to win Game of the Year, but to make the game a little bit better, I'd make a few changes to the story and some game mechanics. And of course, a quick spoiler warning here, as there will be spoilers about the game's plot discussed in this video. Now, let's just jump right into it. Change number 1, make the princess sightings more believable.
Your Highness.
After the upheaval, we learn from Purah that each region has their own phenomena that needs to be explored. Rito Village undergoes an unending blizzard and are starting to run low on food. Gerudo Desert is surrounded in a sandstorm and the residents are forced to take cover underground. Zora's domain is covered in thick sludge as Sidon and the Zora are forced to keep their water supply clean. And Yunobo single-handedly destroys Goron City by becoming a drug lord and making the citizens addicted to marbled rock roast. When talking to the sages, they tell some version of events about seeing Princess Zelda and how she's been acting strange. As the players, most of us knew this wasn't really Princess Zelda. We knew something was up, and when we got the memory with the imposter, we knew exactly what was going on. But if it were up to me, I would have made this twist much more believable. Instead of Zelda flying off and disappearing at Hyrule Castle at the beginning of the game, have her go to Link and talk about how glad she is that he is safe. Then each region will have their own phenomena going on still. Zelda could either travel with us as a companion, which could be her keeping a close eye on Link, or her NPC could stay at Lookout Landing until you get to whichever region you go to, and then her NPC could already be there talking to the sages. She could participate in cutscenes and conversations that really sell the idea that this is the real Zelda. And then after beating all the temples, Zelda could initiate the quest to go to the castle for the fight with Phantom Ganon, where the twist would eventually be revealed. Now what I'm suggesting here is to make the change more believable, not make it impossible to figure out beforehand. There could be clues that aren't too obvious but you could pick up on. For instance, at the beginning of the game, keep the cutscene with Zelda giving recall to Link. We clearly see her secret stone around her neck during this cutscene, but maybe the imposter would be walking around without it around her neck. Another cool idea would be after every dungeon, it could kick off a cutscene with a dehydrated Ganondorf sitting on his throne, talking to the imposter to get updates about how Link just beat a dungeon. The scene would just be Ganon saying something like, "So, Link completed 1 dungeon already? Make sure to keep a close eye on him." Zelda wouldn't need to be on screen or say anything back. Or maybe we get small glimpses of Zelda, maybe zoomed in real close on her outfit or something, so we can't quite tell that it's her, but enough that it could give a clue. Or she could give 1 or 2 word responses to Ganondorf like "Yes sir," or "Yes king," or "Please consider subscribing to this channel if you're enjoying the video." Please? For real though, this could potentially give Ganondorf more character building and we learn more about him throughout these cutscenes as well. Making this reveal harder to notice makes the twist that much better. The reactions of people who didn't figure it out would be amazing to see. And for those who do figure it out, it would be so rewarding and make the player feel good when they get to this reveal. Change number 2, bring young Impa back. This change actually ends up being a 2-parter, but we'll get to the second part in a minute. Ever since playing Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I wanted a younger Impa back. She kicked ass in that game, and had one of the better personalities out of all of the characters. We also have a canonical way for this to happen too. In Breath of the Wild, Purah was able to de-age herself. It went a little haywire and she turned into a kid, but she was able to fix this and make herself into an adult by Tears of the Kingdom. They could have had Impa go through the de-aging process so she could help fight with Link. Historically, Impa has been Zelda's protector. A couple examples would be in Skyward Sword, she's following Zelda around and protecting her, and in Ocarina of Time, she helped Zelda escape Ganondorf. I feel like she's an important character in the series and should have been involved more in Tears of the Kingdom. Rather, they have Impa retired as the leader of Kakariko Village and she's investigating the geoglyphs across the land of Hyrule. Sure, it's an important quest, but I'd love to see her kick some ass again in Tears of the Kingdom. Before Breath of the Wild, previous Zelda entries have had a companion follow Link around. That companion could actually be Impa for this game. She could similarly fight alongside you like the sages do in this game. And speaking of sages, we're now at part 2, which is, let's make Impa the 5th sage. There's nothing wrong with Minoru. I love her. She's a great character and all, but something seems a little off here. Look, I get why she's here. She's the spirit sage and doesn't have a physical body anymore, so she needs this construct. Being the spirit sage and being in the present day makes sense, but I think it would have been much cooler to have someone in the present day be the sage, someone we already know, like the other sages. Imagine Impa running around with Link through each region, helping everyone along the way, and then we get to the part where we have to find the 5th sage, and then we go on a quest where she finds out that she's the 5th sage. That would be so cool for her character. To take it a step further, she could be a descendant of Minoru. All of the other sages are descendants, so let's keep the theme going here. Imagine if Minoru met someone and they had a child, but after Minoru passed, the father would raise their child and together they start the Sheikah tribe. This reveal would be amazing as we would simultaneously learn more about the beginning of the Sheikah tribe as well as Impa being a sage again. For her sage ability, she could have something unique like elemental kunai daggers or something to line up more with the Sheikah tribe. Or we could keep the construct idea for the 5th sage. Master Koga creates a construct during his quest in the depths, so during the reveal of Impa being the 5th sage, Minoru could provide the blueprints on how to create one, and Purah could use those blueprints to create one for Impa. Either way, as much as I love Minoru, I would have loved to see Impa get her due here with this potential storyline. Change number 3. Remove the pause feature during combat. This one might be one of the more controversial changes, but hear me out. The change is designed to make the combat in the game more challenging. Now, don't get me wrong, the difficulty greatly increased from the older games to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but it just feels off to be able to pause the game to eat a really unlimited amount of food and heal up during the middle of combat. You're able to pause during combat in the older games, but you have much more limited healing options. You have limited empty bottles to use, and you really have to hope that there are hearts nearby on the ground in the old games. But in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you can really stock up on food and not really be in much danger. The game also pauses when switching between weapons, shields, or bows. This is amplified even more in Tears of the Kingdom when fusing items to your arrows, which is done pretty frequently. At the very least, maybe the pause feature could be turned on or off as part of like a pro mode, which would limit you so you can't pause near enemies. The developers would just need to make sure that after Link dies, he would respawn in an area not near enemies so you don't get stuck in a loop if you're unable to beat the enemy. Or, pro mode could automatically disable after a certain number of deaths within the same area so you can pause again to teleport out of there. Now let's go over the changes that I would implement here. There are 2 options that I'd recommend for weapon switching. The first one is you can keep the same UI, but the enemies continue to move when you're trying to switch weapons. It forces the player to find a safe spot or wait to dodge an attack before trying to switch weapons. At the very least, let's make them half speed so you can switch between shields, weapons, and bows, but the enemies aren't completely stopped. Or for the second idea, which is the one I personally would go with, is to switch out the current UI for a new system, which would have up to a certain number of preset equipment items. For example, let's limit Link to 5 preset weapons that can easily be switched by pressing a button. Slot 1 can have the Master Sword, Hylian Shield, and say a Soldier Bow. Whereas slot 2 can be the Royal Guard Spear, Bow, and Shield. Say slot 1 is equipped, simply pressing right on the D-pad would switch all of the equipment automatically to the slot 2 items, or pressing left on the D-pad would switch to slot 5. This way, you can have 5 preset slots that you can choose before battle and seamlessly switch between them. The issue here is the durability of your equipment. If you only have 5 preset options, well, what about 6 through however big your inventory is? What I would do to counteract that is, say you have a weapon in slot 1 breaks. You will remain unarmed until you switch to slot 2, and then slot 1 would automatically be replenished with whatever was in slot 6 of your inventory. So then that way, you won't end up in a fight without weapons unless all of them break in your inventory, which currently happens in the game. Heck, this idea could even work with switching between armor sets as well, where you could have a certain armor set in slot 1 and then a completely different one in slot 2. Then whenever you switch, Link changes his outfit as well. At the very least, if combat remains the same, we should implement this idea to remove pause for eating food. Like, I picture Ganondorf waiting patiently for Link to finish his meal before attacking. What a true Chad. They should introduce a quick time feature where the food is able to be accessed without pressing pause, so players can still heal during combat, but would also have to choose the right time when it would be safe to heal. Both of these features are designed to make the game a little bit more fast-paced and increase the difficulty of the game, which I think would make the game much more fun to play. Change number 4, introduce Blacksmiths into the game. This is the one idea on the list that I'm taking from the community. Not that I'm the only one who thought of the other 4 changes in this video, but this was the only one I saw someone else mention, but I liked it too much to not include it into this video. Weapon durability has been met with mixed reviews when it was introduced in Breath of the Wild, and one suggestion that has made its way around is a blacksmith who could help improve weapon durability. What would be cool is if we could view how many hits we have remaining on our weapons. Then in each town, we could find the blacksmith who could restore our weapons back to the maximum durability. Maybe there could be a quest for each blacksmith, and once completed, they can improve the durability of special weapons by 4 swings or 4 hits if it's a shield. Although I would recommend the blacksmiths be unable to do anything with the master sword. Given that it's such a legendary sword, an ordinary blacksmith might not be able to do work on it. However, maybe there's a quest that activates after doing all of the blacksmith quests from each region where you find magical artifacts to improve the durability of the master sword. One last thing I would add for the blacksmiths is a feature where they could build any weapon if given the right materials. This kind of already exists in the game in the form of the champion weapons, where if you bring certain materials, they will make the champion weapons from Breath of the Wild. But these blacksmiths would be able to create any weapon that you would want them to. Maybe all you need to do is present them with a weapon for them to inspect or maybe break down, so they know the materials that are needed for that weapon. This is one of the smaller changes, but it could provide a big impact if done correctly. Change number 5, better combat cutscenes. We talked a little bit about additional cutscenes in our first change, but for this one, additional cutscenes surrounding combat would have been a great addition to the game. One thing Zelda isn't known for are their combat cutscenes. Most of the cutscenes we get with fights are typically very quick without much combat. Some examples are when Imposter Zelda attacks Sonia. The dagger stops and simply falls to the ground. Ganondorf attacking Rauru and then Rauru promptly flees. The Yiga hunting Zelda. This, we don't even see Link knock the guy out. It's just assumed that he does, and the others just back up. We don't see Link fight the other 2 Yiga clan members. And let me be clear, I love these cutscenes. There's nothing wrong with what they are. I'm just asking for a little bit more. Like Urbosa fighting the Yiga clan in Breath of the Wild. This is the change I think we needed a little bit more of. This is what, 30 seconds of fighting back and forth and one of the best cutscenes in the game. Now, let's do this exercise. Take the next 5 to 10 seconds to think about your favorite cutscene in Tears of the Kingdom. Just take a moment, maybe pause the video if you need a little time to think. Okay, was it the combat sequence during the imprisoning war? If it isn't number 1 on your list, then it's probably second because, I mean, look at this. The ancestors are attacking Ganondorf, Zelda using her recall ability, and Ganon fighting off these attacks with ease. This really shows how strong Ganondorf is, and why Rauru needed to make the sacrifice that he made. For those who played Age of Calamity, you know what I'm talking about. This game had some intense combat sequences, like when obtaining the Master Sword. This game has some of the best cutscenes in all of Zelda, and Nintendo didn't even make it, really. It was Koei Tecmo. And it would have been so cool if we got more of these kinds of cutscenes in Tears of the Kingdom. I wouldn't take away any of the memories or cutscenes that we do get in Tears of the Kingdom, rather I would just add some cutscenes. For example, each dungeon boss has 2 phases. Maybe in between phases 1 and 2, there's a 10-second cutscene of Link and the sage fighting the boss before the boss does their animation for their second phase. Or maybe once the health bar has been completely depleted, we get a cutscene of Link and the sage having a quick back and forth fight with the boss before landing the finishing blow. Maybe do this with all boss fights, including the final fight against Ganondorf before he eats the secret stone. I mean, the cinematic sequence we get during the dragon fight was so cool, and it's a little bit closer to what I'm referencing, but let's expand this a little further to improve the quality of the game. Look, there's nothing wrong with the cutscenes we get from Zelda. I love them. Nintendo mostly uses the cutscenes to tell the story, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is just one change that I'd like to see because most people love these combat sequences a little bit more than the ones with just dialogue to provide context of the story. Both are good, but let me know what you think about these 5 changes in the comments section down below. What changes would you make to the game? If you're new here, slash that subscribe button for more videos like this or to come watch some live streams. If you're interested in more Zelda content like this, click on the video on the screen. Also, we're trying to grow our community in our Discord server. Click on that link in the description to join. Hope to see you guys on the next video, and thanks for watching.